Welcome to Intuitive Transformations with your host, Sylvia Henderson, and discover tools, wisdom, and inspiration that will empower you to transform your life. Sylvia is an intuitive life coach and energy healer with a growing practice that is focused on empowering others to be more of who they want to be. For the next hour, join Sylvia and explore and unravel anything in the way of you creating the life that you would love to live on the Om Times Radio Network.
Well, hello and welcome to the Intuitive Transformations radio show, where you will find tools that you can use to change and transform your life right here on the Om Times Radio Network, the voice of consciousness at omtimes.com. This is Sylvia Henderson, your host, and I'm an intuitive life coach and an energy healer. My work focuses primarily on releasing the limiting belief systems that are holding you back in your life. If you'd like to learn more about me and the work that I do, then please feel free to visit my website. That's at intuitivetransformations.net. That's transformations, plural, .net. One of the things that brings me a great deal of joy in life is when I notice the synchronicities that show up, because then I know I'm in the flow. And experiencing chance encounters, bringing something that is pleasantly unexpected is always just, it's absolutely delightful. It helps me to know that I'm in alignment with where I'm supposed to be. My guest for today is really someone special because he came into my awareness purely by happenstance, or what some people would call by coincidence. I was on Facebook a while ago, and I saw a post in my news feed from psychic medium Thomas John that caught my eye. And in this post, he was congratulating my guest that I have on today for his brand new book. And as soon as I saw the title of the book, I knew that I had to have this author on my show. The name of the book is I Am Psychic, So Are You. And here is why I wanted this author to join us today. You see, being psychic, following your own intuition, your inner guidance, is one of your most valuable superpowers as a spiritual being in a human body. It is really by far, I have to say, my most favorite and highly revered topics to discuss, because we're living in a world today where things are very challenging and it's hard to know which way to turn and exactly what to do. Things are not quite as predictable as they once were. So we can't really use our analytical thinking mind as much as we used to in the past. So here's what I love about connecting with your inner guidance. It allows Spirit to give us information that's for our betterment so that we can experience more joy in our lives. If everyone connected more with Spirit, more with their inner guidance, believe me, the world would be a much better place. When we tap into our own innate ability to connect with our spiritual guidance, it is a valuable skill that will completely change your life. Intuition is something that we're all born with, and we have been erroneously taught that it is far more valuable and important to use that analytical thinking mind versus our inner knowing. And to be honest, not using our intuition is what has helped to create the negative impact that we're witnessing out in the world today. With the exception of those who are highly empathic, for the most part, human beings in our civilized societies have kind of tuned down their intuition to such an extreme degree that they don't even believe that psychic abilities are even a possibility. And they've labeled psychic abilities as being either illegitimate or wrong or evil, or someone with who does readings or helps people with their intuitive and psychic gifts is a scammer or something negative, but that's not true at all. So while I have to confess that there are a lot of people out there who are not authentically psychic as they profess, and they do see it as a way to make it easy money. There are a lot of very authentic, heart-centered psychics and intuitives and mediums who truly live their life from a place of wanting to help humanity heal itself. Well, today we're going to talk about being psychic and so much more. Today we are going to have a really fun show talking about this subject that I know, love, and adore, because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that intuition does change lives in a positive way for the better. Joining us today is psychic medium Travis James Sanders. He's the author of I Am Psychic, So Are You, and he is going to share his own personal experience and journey as a working psychic medium and talk about how you can step into your own innate natural psychic abilities, talents, and gifts. Now, Travis is young, but a very accomplished clairvoyant medium, intuitive consultant, and teacher who has been working professionally since the age of 16, when a psychic reading changed the course of his life forever. Travis is a certified Reiki teacher, quantum life coach, has received paraprofessional training in the psychic arts, past life therapy, and he's certified by Doreen Virtue. He has undergone training with well-known Lily Dale medium and author Sharon Klinger, and he has studied with a host of other well-known clairvoyant psychics and mediums to hone his skills. So what does that all mean, really? Well, everything and nothing, because Travis is a soul just like you and I on a journey that's filled with passion. With over 10 years of experience working in the psychic arts, Travis has been featured on A&E's Psychic Kids, Children of the Paranormal, as well as Entertainment Tonight's The Insider, and has been on Nancy Grace as well as numerous other news stations. Travis has also appeared on a variety of radio programs, including CBS Radio, and he is here joining us today. Welcome, Travis Sanders, to the Intuitive Transformations radio show.
Hey, Sylvia. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is certainly a pleasure, because I have been looking so forward to having you on here, and even more so after having your book and reading it. It's just fantastic. It really is. And I want to encourage everyone listening to go to Amazon after the show and get this book if you are interested at all in increasing your intuitive awareness and in honing your psychic abilities and gifts. So, Travis, how did this all begin for you? It happened around 16 years of age with a psychic reading. Can you tell us the story that went on when you were moving from being a typical teenage young man to recognizing you were a very psychic teenager?
Absolutely. You know, I grew up assuming that everyone saw and felt things in the same way that I did. So, it really never crossed my mind up until I reached adolescence that other people didn't have visions or feel things or know things. And for a long time, I just felt that I was a freak, or I felt that I was broken, or that something was wrong with me, or I questioned for a long time whether or not I was, insane. And it really kind of sent me on this search. So I grew up in a very Pentecostal family. I had a very strict religious upbringing, and I would go to the library after school, and I would sneak home books from, they used to call it the occult section back then. And as I would research all of these things, everything from metaphysics and the paranormal to different religions, I would read and I would find that people were having experiences that matched my own, and that these people weren't crazy, but that they referred to themselves as mediums and psychics and clairvoyants and mystics. And so I kind of started to put the pieces together that maybe I'm not schizophrenic, maybe there's some sort of extrasensory thing going on. And so I researched and I self-taught for several years, not having any teachers or not having any resources. And that led me to a small local psychic fair at the age of 16. And being that I'd never gone to a psychic fair, I had no idea what to expect. I walked in, I kind of got the feel for what the whole thing was about, and I knew that I had to speak to the woman in the back corner, so I scheduled my session with her, and when the time finally came, I sat down, And the first thing out of her mouth is she goes, you know, you have this gift. And she goes, you know, someday I see you doing readings and teaching and writing and being on TV. And because I was so shy and so backwards, I thought this woman was like smoking crack, or this was her, you know, her go-to line for anyone who sat down in front of her. But yet part of it made sense to me, and part of it felt very validated. And what was only supposed to be a 15-minute reading turned into, you know, a 2-hour period where I got to sit and talk to this woman who actually ended up living in my hometown. And so that was sort of the turning point where things took off. And it was shortly after that I started reading myself.
Wow. So did she turn out to be some kind of a mentor later on? Because you did say that she lived in your hometown. Did you continue the relationship after that 2-hour reading?
Yeah, actually, I found that she only lived a few miles from where I did. And so the next day after this fair, she brought me a bunch of books to read that she thought that I would think were interesting. And, you know, her and I'm still friends with her to this day. I still see her regularly. But her and another one of the readers from this fair kind of took me under their wing. And so while other, you know, 16, 17-year-old boys were playing sports or skateboarding or video games, I was going to, like, psychic fairs and metaphysical conventions with these older women. And they really, you know, were sort of like those first teachers, but it was more of a friendship than anything else. You know, I've always said that I've been very blessed that I've gotten lots of mothers in this lifetime because, you know, the universe has always kind of put into place strong women who have been there to point me in the direction that I need to go on my path.
Wow, that is so awesome that you had that little buffer as you were expanding into this awareness of, you know what, this is actually a gift instead of what I thought was just this challenging issue I've been resisting all this time. So I know we're going to be headed into a break very shortly, and there's the music there. So when we return, everyone, we'll continue this conversation with Travis, and we'll talk more about being psychic. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay tuned.
The future of Internet radio is here. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
There is no death, only a change of worlds. Chief Seattle. Deborah Livingston is an award-winning intuitive psychic medium whose international services include mediumship, spiritual assessment, animal communication, and spiritual mentoring. She is a published author and a trained shaman. Deborah provides evidential messages from spirit and departed loved ones. Learn more at deblivemedium.com. That's DEBLIV medium.com.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness in action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
Come on, smile. Oh, honey, he's still not smiling.
Maybe he's not a smiler.
Yeah, maybe he's just not a happy baby.
Maybe he's just being a boy.
Or maybe he's teething.
Maybe it's just a phase.
Maybe he has autism, and we can definitely do something to help.
Maybe is all you need to find out more about autism. No big, joyful smiles by 6 months is one early sign. Learn the others at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. This is Intuitive Transformations with Sylvia Henderson, and I have with me my guest, Travis James Sanders. We're talking about his new book, I Am Psychic, So Are You. And before we went to the break, Travis was sharing some of his story about how he became aware that he had the gifts and talents that he has from meeting a woman at a psychic fair and how she and another woman kind of took him under their wings and gave him books so that he could learn more about his natural gifts and talents as a psychic medium. So, Travis, you said before the break that you were raised in a Pentecostal home. Now, I grew up Catholic, but I chose Assembly of God at one point in my life, so I understand that whole kind of mindset. I mean, people would speak in tongues, and they would have gifts of the Spirit in terms of interpretation of the tongues. So it's interesting that that you were raised in that religion, which does speak of spiritual gifts, but only in a box, so to speak. No, not trying to disrespect anyone who is Pentecostal, but it is very rigid about how those gifts are to be practiced, and anything out of the church is considered to be not of God. That's kind of how the mindset is from that point of view. How challenging was that for you?
That's, and I find this too when I teach classes, and in the book there's one chapter that I've dedicated to common blocks that I've noticed with students. And for me, one of the biggest blocks that I see with, that was for myself, but that I see with a lot of my students is the religious programming block. And so for a long time, I struggled because, of course, a lot of our belief systems, especially in our adolescence, are formed off of how we were raised and what our parents instilled in us. So, I genuinely believed in the dogmatic aspect of Christianity and the concept of salvation. And I struggled for a long time of genuinely believing my experiences to be helpful and positive and a part of me. It wasn't something that I did. I wasn't, summoning things up in a pentagram of candles. It was just there. And then trying to rectify that with, but this is going to take me straight to hell. So it did take me a long time to sort of move past that. And I think the biggest thing that really helped put those fears to rest was when I started to look at the scripture. And even recently, in working on a chapter for a new writing project that I'm doing, I really got into scripture and what we would term as the paranormal aspects of the scriptures. And, in Corinthians, Paul, talks about the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and some of the more charismatic fundamental religions practice in that charismatic way. But the one thing that I saw this time that I never noticed before was that he not only encouraged us to use all of these gifts and that we had access to these gifts, but he said that prophecy was one of the most beautiful and one of the most important and the one that everyone should strive for, which I thought was just a beautiful verse, and it was the first time that I really noticed it. The second thing that really helped put those fears to rest was the fact that when someone would come to me, they would walk away and a healing would take place. And in my mind, I couldn't see a devilish or malevolent force partaking in healing in any way.
I love that you shared that way. And I too, have like I said, I have a similar background before I opened up into owning my spiritual gifts as being holy and really very divine and purposeful and a part of me. Like you said, it's not something you're conjuring up outside of yourself. It's just another expression and aspect of who you are. So can you, for those who are listening, and everyone has this definition of what a psychic is, and I really like how you talk about what a psychic is and then also what the distinction is between a psychic and a medium as you described it in your book. Would you mind sharing that with those who are listening?
Sure. To me, a psychic is simply just someone who can gain information beyond the five physical senses. And so the two big sources, I think, in a psychic capacity for information is the human aura or the human energy field and our own spirit guides and helpers. And, like the book says, I think we all have aspects to that psychic we all have access, to that psychic side of ourselves. But usually with the psychic realm of things, we're dealing with stuff that's either going on with the person's health, the past, the present, the future. It's very much centered around the living and the energy of the living, as to where when you step into the realm of mediumship, you're using those same psychic faculties, clairvoyance, clairsentience, seeing, feeling, hearing, whatever your channel is, but you're using those channels and you're working from a different vibration. So instead of working on that auric level, you're connecting directly with the consciousness of souls that have passed, and basically what most people would call talking to dead people.
Right. So did that develop at the same rate as your psychic ability, or did that come later?
You know, it's interesting. The mediumship didn't develop until later. I always tell people I was a psychic first. It's, you know, of the capabilities that I have, it's the one that I'm probably the most comfortable and competent in. And the mediumship, I think, actually started to blossom shortly after I delved into working clairvoyantly, but I resisted it for such a long time. And I didn't understand that as someone who was having panic attacks and anxiety attacks, that it was actually connected to spirit people trying to come through and me not recognizing that energy because I wasn't educated enough. So in dealing with panic attacks and trying to, you know, deal with just the basic stuff that kids deal with when they're in high school, I pushed that away. You know, my thought was, I have a hard enough time dealing with the living. I have in no way, shape, or form want to talk to the dead. And so even though there were moments where a message may have been given, or I would sense or see or feel someone, I really pushed it away and stuffed it down. And it's around 2012, it was spring of 2012, that I actually decided to stop fighting it and really embrace it.
Wow. So how did you then move from, okay, I've got these abilities, to being on Psychic Kids, Children of the Paranormal? Because that's a lot of exposure overnight for a kiddo coming out of a Pentecostal church.
It really was. I have to say that experience, if it wasn't for Psychic Kids, I probably wouldn't be doing this as a career today, and so I'll forever be grateful for that. But people ask me that a lot, how did this show come about? And I always say, I honestly don't remember. I was just a kid. I was working part-time at the mall, part-time at psychic fairs, and one day I came home and I checked my email, and I got an email from a producer. And I answered back. I didn't think anything of it. And before I knew it, camera people were at my house, and we were filming a TV show.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So you definitely were on the fast track with it. Let's talk about your book. So why did you decide to write your book, I Am Psychic, So Are You? What does your book offer that you found missing in other psychic development books?
When I decided that I wanted to write a book, and I always knew that was going to be a path that I explored because writing is one of my passions, but I wasn't sure what that would look like or what I was going to put out there. And I had a completely different book that I decided not to do anything with. And so I was like, okay, well, what's my next project? If I'm not going to pursue this, what do I feel like I need to put out there? And part of, being on Psychic Kids, the after result of that is, over the years, I've had many young people approach me who felt that they were sensitive, but they were so lost. And being that person who was that lost teenager, that lost adolescent, I could sympathize and I could empathize, and I know how frightening it can be if you don't have the understanding. And so I always said, if I was going to write a book on psychic development, which I kind of decided on in myself, that I wanted to write the book that I wished that I had when I was first starting to open up, because there's a million titles out there. And there's a lot of amazing books, and there's a lot of so-so books, and there's a lot of not-so-great books. And I always felt like one of the common themes that I noticed as I read and studied was that they gave you a little bit, but they didn't give you too much. And I've seen this with a lot of spiritual teachers. They want to give you enough to keep you enthralled and keep you engaged, but I think on some level they don't want to give you more than is necessary. They don't want you to either reach their level or surpass them. And in my psychic classes that I teach, I call it psychic boot camp because it's just 3 days, 6 hours a day. It's very intense. I want to give my students everything that I can, and I want to give it to them in a way that's practical and down to earth, because one of my frustrations has been the lack of groundedness in the New Age movement. And so that's really what the book was birthed from, was just my desire to put something out there that was practical, down to earth, and applicable to everyday life.
I love that answer, because I think you're absolutely dead on. I mean, I get to read a book a week, which I shared with Travis in our pre-interview, and you do find that quite a bit, that authors tend to give you just enough, but not enough where you can be solo on your own and really be able to create what is kind of sometimes even promised at the beginning of the book. But I have to say, I want everyone to know that is not the case with this book. I mean, I was telling Travis before the show that it really feels, as you read this, like you've gone on a retreat to learn how to excel in your gifts, in your natural intuitive gifts. And I also like how you said that, I like to use the word intuitive, and some people use psychic because intuitive has a little less baggage for me. I mean, you really touch on every single nook and cranny and nuance that has to do with this whole realm of being open to spirit and intuitive and psychic and being a medium. But can you talk about the 5 clairs? Because those are the channels where how individuals access information from spirit, what they are, and how they even mirror 5 physical senses.
Absolutely. What you just said, I think, is even more important than what we call them. Traditionally, you hear a lot of people talk about clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance, and then there's that aspect of taste and smell. But they really are a spiritual mirror of our 5 physical senses. So we have our physical sight and our spiritual sight. I tend to notice when I
and there's the music. Travis, hold that thought. When we return after the break, we're going to continue this conversation about the 5 clairs. Please stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few moments.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, Om Times Radio, IOM FM. As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Buffett. How would you like to meet an endangered manatee? You can by joining Save the Manatee Club's Adopt the Manatee program. You can't take them home, but you can get to know your new manatee friend through the photo, biography, and information the club sends to you. And you can read updates on your manatee in the club newsletter. More importantly, your contribution goes to programs that are working to save manatees from extinction. It's easy to help. Call 1-800-432-JOIN.
And we are back. This is Sylvia Henderson with Travis James Sanders. And Travis, I do apologize. I didn't catch the break soon enough, but right before we went into the break, you were just about to talk about the 5 clairs and how they mirror 5 physical senses. And so jump right back in there, sir.
No worries. I was just saying, I find that most people tend to have one or two channels, one or two of those clairs that they excel in more than others. But I firmly believe that we have access to all of those. People, I think, in general, and I include myself in this statement, the two strongest that I see are feeling and seeing. And it makes sense to me because, as a people, we are feeling oriented. And one of the strongest senses that we rely upon in this world is our sight, even just from walking from one room to another. So I always tell people when they're trying to figure out, okay, well, am I clairvoyant or clairsentient or, clairaudient? Think about your physical senses. Is there a physical sense that engages you the most? People who are very artistic and very, creative tend to picture things and perceive things visually very easily. People who find themselves to be more on the emotional side, maybe very clairsentient or very empathic. I find people who are musically inclined tend to be very auditory based with how they perceive their information. And the interesting thing that's really cool for me to watch is when someone first starts out, there's usually the one or the one and the two that are kind of the strongest, and we tend to look at them separately. I'm noticing this picture, and I'm aware of this feeling, and then I hear this sound or I hear this word. But what happens over time is the more we engage those channels and those senses, they kind of blend together. There's this matrixing of the senses that takes place to where it's no longer just a feeling or just a sound or just a picture, but that they kind of all hit at once. And it kind of puts the picture together in a way that's more understandable and less to where you have to decipher the meanings. So, there's just that knowing aspect kind of comes in, and I think that's the glue that puts the pieces together.
I agree with you as well. I think that one of the things that I've seen people challenged with when it comes to seeing is understanding what that seeing really is, because it's not with your physical eyes. It's more, we have this inner vision within us that gives us, am I off base? Is that what you see too? Because that's what I see.
Oh, absolutely. I tell people, especially with movies and TV shows, they think that the idea of a vision or a clairvoyant perception is just going to be this vibrating, roaring image that's just going to tear across the back of their eyelids. And the fact of the matter is, psychic information, especially clairvoyance, can be incredibly subtle. And so people talk about the mind's eye. That's where we need to look. If I were to say, close your eyes and picture a green apple, everyone could probably picture a green apple in their head. And so it's in that same mind space, that same inner eye, that we're perceiving those psychic perceptions.
Absolutely. And that's the language of the subconscious mind as well. It's all an image of sensations and feelings. So what are some of the questions? I'm not going to say what are some of the questions. I know what the questions are. Some of the questions that I bet you get asked often are, do I have guides? Who are my guides? What are their names? And so can you talk a little bit about guides and angels? Because people really get hung up on knowing who their guide is by name in particular. Have you found that to be true for yourself as well?
I try to, in my sessions, I try to at least bring through one guide's energy. Because like you said, people want to know that. They want to feel a personal connection. And I think, to kind of come back to the whole concept of guides and angels, to me it all boils down to vernacular. If you feel comfortable with the imagery of angels, then they're your angels. If you feel comfortable with the image of, people that have lived lives, then go with that. I think they're just excited to be recognized and worked with, that they don't care. And I always tell people, too, that with names, and I used to be the same way. I want to know, and sometimes I'm still that way. If I feel a new energy coming in, what's your name, what do you look like, that sort of stuff. But that's our earthly lens kind of coming into the picture. And I always tell people, too, they don't care if you call them Bob or Jack. Like I said, they're just happy to be recognized and to be listened to. So when I'm reading, sometimes guides, and like I said, I attribute the information that comes through to sort of a correlation and a connection between my guides and the sitter's guides, as well as what comes from their energetic field. But I always tell them, sometimes I will have a name for you. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll just have a description. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes it's just a sense or a feeling. But I always try to give them something that they can walk away with to help them forge a stronger relationship with that guide.
Because we all have guides and spiritual help. We have a whole spiritual family and team around us that's here to support us through our earthly life. We're not in this alone, which is really a very comforting thing to consider. And I know that there's been so much misunderstanding about what a guide is and what a guide isn't. And they've usually been in the movies and TV shows, not always shown in the highest vibrational light. It's usually something that, it must be demonic. And that's not the case. Even those who transition over are loved ones. They're here. They're here to love us and support us even still, even though they're just not in a physical body, right?
Absolutely. I firmly believe that we have far less privacy than we think we do. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that to say that we truly are never alone. And that's one thing that, as a person, I like a lot of alone time. And people can kind of see me as alone, and they're like, well, don't you ever want, company, or don't you ever get tired of being by yourself? And I'm like, I'm never by myself, so I don't have that feeling. But, our guides truly do have our best interest in mind. And I always tell people, too, who have those concerns from those Hollywood portrayals, your natural protection is your own vibration, your own level of integrity, your own level of compassion. We have guides, I believe, that are assigned to us or chosen by us, I should say, before we incarnate. And then I believe that we attract other, spiritual helpers into our experience with like energy. And as long as you are being in integrity and focusing on your path and genuinely wanting to better yourself, you're going to attract the spirit people who support that.
I agree. I totally agree with you there, Travis. So can we talk a little bit about one of the other little stumbling blocks that happens with psychic work, and that's what I call reading the future or predictive work. So I always tell my clients I don't do predictive work just because we all have free will, we all have free choice, and there's so many variables that can impact a future outcome. And I really do believe that this is one of the things that have given psychics a little bit of a bad rap, because when the prediction does not come true, then all of a sudden everything that was revealed during that session no longer has validity. So what is your take on predictive work?
I always tell clients right off the bat, and I don't mind doing the predictive work because part of me finds it fun, looking ahead and finding things out. But I always tell them, a reading, especially when we're looking towards the future, is a snapshot. It's a snapshot in time. Mm-hmm. It's based off of, A and B in the present is equaling C in the future. So when I look at the future, I try not to let it be super black and white for that person. I like to look at options. I see it, and I always tell people it's a likelihood based off of how things currently sit. This is what is most likely. But if you make significant changes in your life, you can alter your course. So if you do A and B, this is the result that's going to happen. But if you make this choice, this is the result that I see is going to happen. And usually they're okay with that explanation, and it puts responsibility back in their hands to where it's not all kind of riding on your shoulders. And it's fun, when a client or someone that you did a reading for emails you or calls you and said, you said this happened or that this was going to happen, and it did. And then sometimes it's just as interesting when someone tells you how you were off. I recently had a person tell me, you told me that this specific thing was going to happen in August. Well, it didn't happen the immediate August, which was just a month away at the time, but it was the following August. So It is. It's not a science. It's an art. And, it's nothing is set in stone, and you just have to be very flexible with that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. And I guess that one thing I should have added that I didn't is that there are times in my healing sessions where there is something predictive that comes out, and I know it's for that person, and I know I need to share it. But I don't know, when I have a client and they say, "Can you tell me if I should do this or if I should do that?" And I just feel that we all are empowered to make our own choices for a reason. And I like how you answered that question, because you're still allowing that person to remain in their power versus becoming dependent.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so easy. It's so easy for people to become dependent on readings or dependent on a psychic. And my goal is to give the person the tools that they need to make their own decisions for their best and highest possibility that they can have for life. I have no desire to make a decision for you. I have no desire to, have the weight and the responsibility of your life choices on my shoulder. And sometimes I'll say, it's how you frame it too. If I were in your shoes, this is probably what I would do, but that has to be a choice that you make. I can tell you what I feel to be in your best interest, but it ultimately boils down to your choice.
Absolutely, and I love that. And that leads me to my next question, which there is a chapter in your book, and I'm so grateful that you put it in there, and that's chapter 11, and that's all about ethics. And I think that is, for anyone who is using their gifts to help other people, that you are very clear that you stay within the realm of what is ethically supportive for the individual that you're working with, because, as Travis said, you don't want people to become dependent on you, because that's disempowering them. Really good quality work is all about empowering your client.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a very laid-back person, and I will finish that up when we come back.
That sounds good. We'll be back in just a few moments, everyone. Please stay tuned for more of Travis Sanders talking about his book, I Am Psychic, So Are You.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on Om Times Radio, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
I want to thank my mommy for loving me so much,
for taking me to the doctor when I broke my foot,
for leaving me alone when I wanted to be alone.
And now, as a grown-up, I'm thankful for being able to take care of you, my dear mom, for taking you to your therapies, for understanding that sometimes you simply want to be alone.
Roles change without us noticing. That's why AARP gives you the information to provide even better care for your loved one. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Intuitive Transformations radio show on OmTimes.com, and this is Sylvia Henderson with my very special guest, Travis Sanders, and we're talking about his book, I Am Psychic, So Are You. And before we went to the break, Travis, you were just about to say something about psychic ethics.
Yeah, I was saying, I'm a very laid-back person. Not a lot gets me upset. It really takes a lot of energy and effort to push my buttons. But when I see a lack of ethics and abuse and misuse in this work, it really gets me going. And it's probably, too, why I don't associate with a lot of other psychics and mediums. Especially when I was younger, and you're opening up these doors to all these possibilities, and I just kind of took everything as it came in. And as I grew older and as I matured, I realized that some of the things that I saw were not only practical or logical, but that they were highly unethical. And in working in many years managing metaphysical stores and centers, I've seen a lot of unethical practices come through, and it angers me, irritates me, but it also saddens me, because I've dedicated the majority of, probably almost half my life to this field, this work, and I know that there are very sincere and authentic and gifted practitioners out there. And for every one of those sincere and gifted practitioners, there's probably twice as many people who are not. And I've noticed that sometimes it's just that people are downright manipulative or looking to scam. And then a lot of times there are people who genuinely believe that they are gifted or whatever it may be, but are not either qualified or do not have the ethical understanding to be practicing in a professional manner. And like I said, it's frustrating, because I think that reflects on everyone. So I think that if more people imparted these practices or these ethical standards to their work, what we did as a whole would be looked at more as a service in line with counseling or I don't maybe necessarily want to say a religious position, but as opposed to fortune telling and crystal ball reading.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think you answered that question very well. Thank you for sharing that. So, Travis, can you let people know how they can get your book, how they can get in touch with you, and what do you have coming up soon in terms of classes and courses?
Sure. My website is psychictravissanders.com. If you're a big social media person like myself, Facebook is just facebook.com/psychictravissanders. You can email me directly at travispsychic@yahoo.com. And as far as upcoming events, this coming weekend in Royal Oak, Michigan, I'm going to be doing 2 classes on Friday. One is on spiritual cleansing, and the other one is on working with the ancestors and healing karmic patterns. And then Sunday at the Royal Oak Women's Club, I will be doing a short lecture at what they call Temple of the Sun. Also in early November here in Huron, Ohio, where I reside, at It's Your Journey Metaphysical Shop, I will be teaching a couple-hour class on working with divination tools and oracle cards.
Awesome. That is just awesome. And people can find your book on Amazon.com, is that correct?
Yeah, on Amazon. And there's also the website kind of redirects people back to Amazon, but I am going to be kind of doing some restructuring to the website where people will be able to order personalized copies.
And I just want everyone to know this is more than a book. This really is a spiritual retreat in a book because he did not scrimp on information. I mean, there's these fantastic meditations in here and exercises and insights. I mean, you hear how eloquent he is as a speaker, as a teacher. It's all in this book. So I highly, highly recommend this. And I do recommend books all the time, but I very seldom say I highly, highly recommend a book, and I'm saying that today. So so if you don't have I Am Psychic, So Are You, I really do want to encourage you to go out and get it. If you have any interest or any questions about what's going on within you, if you feel other people's energy, if you're feeling overwhelmed when you go into a room with a lot of people, this is the book you want to know. A lot of people don't even realize the sensations that they're feeling, like you had shared earlier, Travis. Those anxious feelings are really their intuitive knowing waking up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we have just a few more minutes left before the end of I can't believe this has gone so quickly. This is amazing.
Right?
Not here, I know. It's been fun. It's been fantastic. So I did ask Travis if he wouldn't mind giving me a little brief mini reading on the air. Travis, are you still up for that at all?
Oh, sure. So, I'm just going to ask you if I have your permission, if you're ready for me to kind of connect and tune in with you.
I absolutely am. And I'm going to ask you one of the top 2 categories to look at. One is career business, and the other one is, of course, relationship love. The standard question.
Yeah, so I was prepared for that one because as I've been sitting here, knowing that you were going to ask this question, I've had this little notepad here. I've been taking down information because I've actually had this guide who steps forward for you. And she, to me, and I don't necessarily think this is what she looks like. I think they're giving me this to kind of just for her to sort of describe her personality. But the way that I perceive her and feel her energy in my mind's eye is very much like Arya Stark, if you're familiar with Game of Thrones. She has this.
No, but I'll have to watch it now.
Yeah, you'll have to watch it. She just has this scrappy, tough as nails, determined, nothing's going to stop her quality to her. And so she's sort of this guiding energy who steps in the most clearly as I'm connecting with your energy. And if I take into account career and relationship. So one thing, too, from this guide before I move into career and relationship is I keep feeling like, I don't know if you do anything with this in your intuitive work, but she makes me feel like she's going to connect most with you via automatic writing. So keep that in the back of your mind. But when it comes to relationships, what happens is I throw my awareness down a timeline for you. They take me into the month of March, and that's where they put my signs and symbols for romance. What's happening, though, in the meantime, and it's interesting because a lot of times when I read people, there's 2 chakras that stand out the most. One is like a challenge, and one is sort of overinflated. For you, both your challenge and sort of the weakness, for lack of better words, is all heart chakra stuff. So you have an incredibly intense and open heart chakra, but at the same time, it's like the image that they give me is like peeling away layers of an onion, because it's not that the heart itself is blocked in this way. It's just the aspects specifically centered around romance and relationships. And there's some old programs, I guess, for lack of better words, that are being pulled out there. But I definitely touch into that romantic energy, that romantic relationship around the month of March for you. The other thing, too, that I want to say as far as career is I definitely feel and see my signs of transitions in the month of December for you. And I think it's fitting because we're moving into the new year, but I actually feel that this starts more at the beginning half of December for you, the earlier parts of December. And I think you're going to have an option of looking at choices of how you want things to look and opportunities where you have to kind of decide between 2 or more things. But I think that you're, grounded enough and in tune enough to make decisions that are for your own best interest. One thing that I do want to give to you to keep in mind, though, is that they take me into what to me feels around April or May, and I feel like there's some sort of a conflict or some sort of this battle-like energy that has to do with money, but not in the way that we might think. To me, that this almost feels like I'm battling or dealing with some sort of unfair charges or unfair billing, not about someone denying you money, but it feels like a mischarging or a misbilling, and it feels like there's a bit of a ruckus around getting that straightened out. But they're saying that if you stand your ground and you act tough and embrace your inner, embrace your inner B word a little bit in a healthy way, that it's going to be resolved in your favor. I don't know what I can't say on this station, but it will be resolved in your favor. But things I definitely do think are going to continue to expand as far as the work that you're doing. And I feel very good about the path that you're on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Travis. Oh, I so love you. You have just, like I said earlier, your energy is just so, so delightful. I want to thank you so much for being on the show, Travis. You are just an angel in physical form. You really are such a gift. And I want to remind everyone, please get his book. His name is Travis James Sanders. The name of the book is I Am Psychic, So Are You. It's got this really fun cover that I just love also. And he is such an authentic joy to know. And there is everything you could possibly think of that you would want to tap into to allow yourself to expand into more of who you are in a spiritual realm. This book will definitely help you. And you're working on another project, isn't that true, Travis?
Yeah, my deadline for myself is the first of the year, but this next book is solely going to be focused around the development of mediumship and spirit communication.
Awesome. So there's that. This is phase 1, and then you can move over to phase 2. So that's really, truly exciting. Well, I know that the music is going to be coming on very soon, so I just want to remind everyone I will be back again next Sunday, same time, and I also want to let you know that coming in November, my show date and time is going to be changing. Instead of coming here live every Sunday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, I'm going to be available on Thursdays now, and that's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern, and that would make it, I think 11 o'clock in the morning for me, Pacific Standard Time. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here. It's been a delight and pleasure to share Travis with you all. Know that you are loved and have a really fantastic week. Take care and goodbye for now.
Good night.